Alaska, a land of rugged beauty. Vast wilderness stretches as far as the eye can see. Towering mountains pierce the sky. Ancient forests stand as silent guardians, but beneath the serene facade lies an undeniable truth. This untamed wilderness holds secrets. It whispers tales of those swallowed by its embrace, those who dared to venture too far and never returned. The dense forests of Alaska hold a particular allure. They are a maze of towering trees and tangled undergrowth. The air is heavy with the smell of pine and damp earth. At night the forest comes alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the distant howl of a wolf. It is a place of both wonder and danger. Alaska's wilderness is a stark reminder of nature's raw power. It is unforgiving and unpredictable. It is a place where survival is a constant battle, and where the line between life and death can be very thin. Many have ventured into its depths, but some have been consumed by its unforgiving embrace. Their stories serve as warnings, reminders of the wilderness's power. Garrick Wilson was a man drawn to the wild. From a young age he felt a magnetic pull towards the untamed corners of the earth. The call of the wild was more than just a whisper. It was a roaring invitation that he could never ignore. An explorer at heart, he yearned for adventure, the thrill of discovering new places, the excitement of navigating uncharted territories, and the joy of immersing himself in nature's wonders were what fueled his spirit. He craved the unknown. He felt most alive when surrounded by nature's raw beauty. The dense forests, towering mountains, and serene lakes were his sanctuary, offering him a sense of peace and fulfillment that he couldn't find elsewhere. Garrick was an experienced outdoorsman. He had spent countless hours trekking through forests, scaling mountains, and navigating treacherous terrain. His skills were honed through years of practice, and his knowledge of the wilderness was vast. He was confident in his abilities. He believed he could conquer any challenge nature threw his way. His determination and resilience were unmatched, and he thrived on pushing his limits. Garrick was particularly captivated by Alaska. The state's vast, untamed wilderness offered endless opportunities for exploration and adventure. He was drawn to its untamed wilderness, its promise of adventure. The rugged landscapes, diverse wildlife, and remote locations were a dream come true for someone like Garrick. In the summer of 2025, Garrick embarked on a solo expedition. He carefully planned his journey, ensuring he had all the necessary gear and supplies for the adventure ahead. Deep into the heart of Alaska's Denali National Park, he planned to spend a week hiking. The park's vast expanse and remote trails were the perfect setting for his quest, exploring the park's remote trails, documenting the local plants and animals. He was eager to capture the beauty of the park through his lens and share it with the world. He was eager to experience the solitude, to connect with nature on a primal level. The silence of the wilderness, broken only by the sounds of nature, was a symphony to his ears. Friends and family knew Garrick well. They had seen his passion for adventure grow over the years and understood his need to explore. They understood his thirst for adventure, his need to push boundaries. They admired his courage and determination, even if it sometimes worried them. While they worried about his safety, they also respected his courage, his determination. They knew that trying to talk him out of his passion would be pointless. They knew better than to try and talk him out of pursuing his passion. Instead, they offered their support and encouragement, knowing it was what he needed most. Before he left, Garrick promised to stay in touch. He understood their concerns and wanted to reassure them. He would use his satellite phone to call every few days, to update them on his whereabouts, to let them know he was safe and well, to assure them of his well-being. His calls were a lifeline, a way to bridge the gap between his adventurous spirit and their peace of mind. On the third night of his expedition, Garrick set up camp near a secluded lake. The location was perfect, offering a serene and picturesque view that seemed almost too good to be true. The air was still. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the shore and the occasional hoot of an owl. The tranquility of the scene was almost hypnotic, lulling Garrick into a false sense of security. Garrick built a small fire. He cooked a simple meal, savouring the warmth and comfort it provided. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows around him, adding to the eerie yet captivating atmosphere. He recorded his observations in his journal, noting the peculiar stillness of the night. The forest seemed to hold its breath as if waiting for something to happen. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest, Garrick felt a shiver run down his spine. The temperature dropped, and the once inviting forest now seemed menacing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He scanned his surroundings, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, but there was nothing there. Or so it seemed. But he saw nothing out of the ordinary. He attributed his unease to fatigue. After all, it had been a long day of hiking, and his mind could be playing tricks on him. The long day of hiking had worn him out. His muscles ached, and his mind was weary. As darkness enveloped the forest, the strange feeling intensified. As darkness enveloped the forest, the strange feeling intensified. The once familiar sounds of the forest now seemed foreign and threatening. The forest seemed to close in around him. The sounds of the night seemed amplified, distorted. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of fear through him. Garrick tried to rationalize his fear. He reminded himself that he was alone in the wilderness. There was no reason to be afraid, yet the feeling of being watched persisted. It was natural to feel a sense of vulnerability. Despite his attempts to remain calm, Garrick couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled over him. It gnawed at him, refusing to be ignored. He retreated to his tent. He zipped the entrance tight, hoping that the thin fabric would provide some semblance of safety. He tried to convince himself that he was just being paranoid, that there was nothing out there in the darkness, but the silence outside was deafening, and his heart pounded in his chest. But deep down, a primal fear gnawed at him. He couldn't escape the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The night was far from over, and Garrick knew he wouldn't find peace until the first light of dawn. Later that night, Garrick's satellite phone crackled to life. The sound was jarring in the stillness of the night, breaking the eerie silence that had settled around his tent. It was his friend Sarah calling to check on him. She'd been worried ever since he decided to camp alone in the remote wilderness. "Garrick, are you there? How's everything going?" Sarah's voice was cheerful, a stark contrast to the dark surroundings Garrick found himself in. Unaware of the fear that had gripped Garrick, she continued to speak, her voice a comforting reminder of normalcy. "Sarah, Garrick's voice trembled, betraying the terror that had taken hold of him. His hands shook as he held the phone, struggling to keep his composure. He struggled to form words, his mind racing with the inexplicable fear that had been building up all evening. "Something's wrong. I don't feel safe here," he finally managed to say. Sarah's cheerfulness evaporated instantly, replaced by a growing concern. "What do you mean? What's happening?" she asked, her voice laced with concern and urgency. She could sense the gravity of the situation through the phone. "I don't know," Garrick whispered, his voice barely audible. "I just have this feeling, like I'm being watched." He glanced around the dark tent, his eyes darting to every shadow. "I've felt it all evening, but it's getting stronger." The sensation was almost palpable now, an oppressive weight pressing down on him. "I think someone might be out there," he added, his voice shaking. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He could almost see shapes moving in the darkness outside his tent. The line crackled with static, adding to the tension. Garrick's panicked breaths were punctuated by moments of chilling silence. "Garrick, try to stay calm," Sarah said, her voice firm despite her own growing fear. She knew she had to keep him grounded. "Can you see anything? Can you describe what's happening?" she asked, hoping to get more information. Garrick's next words sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "I can't see anything, but I can hear something moving outside my tent," he whispered, his voice barely a rasp. "It's close, too close!" The line went dead, leaving Sarah in a state of shock. She tried desperately to reconnect, but Garrick's signal had vanished. The silence that followed was deafening. She was left with a chilling premonition, a growing sense of dread that something terrible had happened to her friend. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. She knew she had to act quickly. The forest around Garrick was now a place of unknown dangers, and Sarah could only hope he would find a way to stay safe until help could arrive. She was left with a haunting sense of helplessness, knowing that her friend was out there, alone and afraid, a growing sense of dread that something terrible had happened to her friend. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, filled with the unknown.